booting up here. Okay, cool. All right, looks like we got the recording going. All right, so let me present again. Oh, here, I think I already am. Okay, cool. Great. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining our community call today. This is our very first call, so really excited to be speaking with all of you today and sharing what we're doing here with the with Aleo. So without further ado, I think we can just jump in here real quick. So just to get the rundown, we're going to be going through a few slides here, sharing some information with all of you, and then we're going to have some time to let everybody ask some questions that they might have. So this is like a really great opportunity for all of you to interact directly with our community. So we just ask that you wait until the end to ask any questions, or we could do it throughout. I mean, we don't really have a specific way of doing this since this is our first one. But yeah, so let's just jump into it. So the agenda for today, first, we're going to go through a few introductions since we have some key team members from Aleo on the call, just so you can get to know us more personally a little bit better. Then we're going to go over a couple announcements related to the project that we think are important for you to know about. We'll also cover some general community updates. So looking at some of the things going on in the Discord. Then the next piece is actually going to be talking a little bit about programming context that we're going to be putting together coming up, which should be really fun for some of you to get involved with. Then we'll be going through an update on the testnet and actually allow for some technical Q&A, just because, as many of you are aware, we've been running into a few challenges recently. And then the last piece will be a more general Q&A for you to kind of just ask whatever you want. So just to start, we can do some introductions. I can begin here. So my name is Anthony DiPrinzio. Many of you have probably seen me in the Discord. I actually started working at Aleo about, I guess, 2 months ago. So I'm still relatively new to the team, but it's been a really exciting experience so far. And I'm really looking forward to continue building out this project. I'm part of our community team, so helping with growth and strategy. So you'll be seeing a lot of me moving forward. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear all of your interesting ideas to help us make Aleo one of the biggest privacy projects in the space. So yeah, I don't know if Alex, you want to give a quick intro next? Or anybody?
I can go next.
Yeah.
So I'm Damon. One slot on one of the pictures there. That's an older picture, obviously. That's back when I was actually working at Wikimedia Foundation. I'm VP of Engineering here. I've been around crypto for a while, although I don't know what a while is in crypto space, really, since it hasn't been around that long. Before this, I was at Near Protocol, where I helped them go from their testnet to the mainnet, and they're actually one of the tokens. It looks like their price is holding up. I'm happy about that. I'm here at Near, or here at Aleo, to do this kind of the same thing, which is really bootstrap the whole engineering process and build out our mainnet. And we're really excited about the progress we made so far. We've been really primarily working before our testnet on Leo, the language, and it has a lot of really great features for succinct proof of succinct work and cryptographic circuits. And we just had a major release for that on Leo 1.4. And that included a bunch of, like I said before, when we were first starting, a bunch of grammar fixes and grammar changes, and also improvements to stability. Leo has the ability to produce R1CS cryptographic proofs, and we're hoping to become the standard for that. Other major announcements too, just real quick, is that we released Aleo Studio. And so I encourage people to check that out, but we'll get to that here in a second. We'll go around through the rest of the introductions. Alex, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sorry, I stepped out for 1 second at the worst possible time, it seems. Hey everybody, Alex, I'm the COO of Aleo. I guess I've talked to a few of you already this morning, but nice to meet everyone here. Thank you everyone for taking the time. I came to Aleo from investing. I was a partner at Andreessen Horowitz on the crypto fund. and was very interested in zero knowledge cryptography, both from that experience and also from the time that I spent at Stanford. And at that time, I kind of came to the conclusion that zero knowledge cryptography was the most underrated technology that's out there today. I think compared to a lot of other things that are pretty hyped, I think ZK has a lot of potential, and not a lot of people know about it. And so when I found out that Howard, who I had met through various things at A16Z and what I was doing at Stanford, when I found out he was starting Aleo, I was really excited to be a part of it. So I ended up joining the team last year. And yeah, and it's been really exciting. Since then, we've raised our Series A, as you all probably know. And yeah, and Damon's going to talk about all the technical progress that we've made, and it's just been really exciting to watch the team grow and to be part of this from an early stage, as you are all now as well. So thank you, Sam or Rika. You guys want to go?
Yeah, I can introduce myself. So my name is Rika. I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark. I am VP of Design at Aleo. And before that, so what Damon said, relatively been around crypto for a while, but what does a while mean in the crypto space or blockchain space? Before this, I was at TESTNET, it was called at that time. It's now called Diversify. And I was at design director there, and then design director at Bitfinex and EOSfinex as well. And currently taking care of product design here, so UI, UX, but also our visual brand and sort of our external, how we look externally facing. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Rika is the reason why everything about Aleo looks so slick.
Really?
We're working on it. It's a work in progress, but it's definitely getting there.
Oh man, yeah, it was. Yeah, my name's Sam. I am just kind of an all-around crypto guy. I have my fingers in a lot of pies. I invest. I mine. I run one of I think the best clubhouses. If you've gotten up on the clubhouse scene about crypto, and yeah, Aleo was one of probably the most exciting project from a lot of standpoints, and then like the way that I look at the crypto scene, and so yeah, I am here to try to help them with whatever they need right now. Kind of doing community stuff and kind of all around strategy and growth stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for all those introductions, everybody. So as you can tell, we have a really interesting and diverse team here. And yeah, like I said before, I think we're all just really personally excited to get to know each and every one of you, and very much look forward to, yeah, helping to grow out this ecosystem. So moving on to the next slide. So yeah, as I mentioned, we'll just be covering some announcements really quickly. I think some of this was kind of mentioned during our introductions, but just to reiterate, so Aleo recently had a $28 million Series A round that we announced officially on Twitter and through some of our other channels. That was back on 4/20. I'm sure a lot of you probably actually maybe already knew this. Perhaps that's how you discovered our community to begin with, but for those of you that weren't aware, just wanted to share that with you. So the second thing is that also on 4/20, we released our second developer preview. So essentially during this developer preview, we launched a number of our key products, including Aleo Studio, which is our IDE for building zero-knowledge applications, our package manager, an Explorer, and then our Leo programming language, which can actually now be used for building zero-knowledge applications. Again, it's one of the first, or the first, domain-specific language and compiler that can actually compile down zero-knowledge proofs into R1CS, which is really, really interesting, like Damon had mentioned earlier. And then our CEO, Howard Wu, he's not on the call right now, but he was actually interviewed on CoinDesk TV. So these slides will actually be distributed later, so you can actually click these links. Recommend watching that video. He covers the Aleo project pretty well, and it should give you a better sense of what we're doing. another thing we wanted to mention is that as of right now, so for mainnet for Aleo, we're actually targeting a launch of Q2 2022. And so far we're looking to be on track for that. So just so you can kind of get a sense of a timeline for that. Just wanted to share a piece of that information. And then as Damon mentioned as well, we released a new version of Aleo Studio, and Damon will be able to share some more of that when we cover the testnet questions. So those are some main announcements that we wanted to cover. And yeah, so I think we can move on here. So the first thing we wanted to get more specific about was the community updates. So one of the things that I wanted to share with everybody is that within our community, we have about right now, I think 1.2 K verified community members on Discord. And essentially what this means is if you're verified, you essentially went through our CAPTCHA process. So all of you are most likely verified members here. If you were able to see our announcement, that means you had to get through the CAPTCHA bot. And I think this is a good metric just to understand how many real people are actually interacting with our community. So we're definitely, growing and want to get that number up. But just so you're kind of aware of how many people there are sort of operating in the Discord. Another thing we wanted to announce was we're actually going to be starting what we call a white paper circle series to cover some more technical topics about Aleo. This is something that I personally always enjoyed being in the crypto industry. I feel like I've learned the most by taking part in these kinds of events. And essentially what's going to happen is we're going to cover very specific technical topics, again, related to Aleo, but also sort of the zero knowledge landscape. We're going to provide people with resources to read beforehand, and then we'll have sort of an open discussion just so that people could learn. So this is something I actually want to launch our first one early next week, possibly. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on Discord for more updates on that. And then something else that we've gathered from our community is that people really want more educational content about zero knowledge. So we're trying to update our ZK Encyclopedia channel. And for those of you that don't know, the ZK Encyclopedia is supposed to be essentially a one-stop shop, a go-to place for you to get all the best resources about zero knowledge. And the reason we want to do this is because we feel very strongly about being sort of a hub and a force to drive forward this topic, since it is very integral to the Aleo project. So if anybody has any interesting resources that they found independently or has anything they'd like to share, please let us know about that. Another thing that we gathered from our community is that people are very much interested in understanding what are the real life use cases of Aleo. And we are also trying to focus on this a bit more as well. I think there's a few different ways that we can potentially get some more use cases out there, but would love to hear any suggestions or ideas you might have about interesting use cases that you've perhaps thought about. So you can feel free to share that in the ideas channel or reach out to any of us in particular about that. And then another thing that we're doing is we're actually writing some more articles to explain how Aleo will be a game changer for privacy and also help to scale the blockchain industry. So maybe Sam, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, because I know you've been, or Alex or anybody, I know you've been working on a few articles there.
So I guess the one coming up here soon that we're going to be publishing in a couple different venues beyond our blog post is an article about the setup ceremony. So, and I can talk a little bit more about this later if people have questions, but Aleo is based on Zexy, and the construction of Zexy is really basically 3 ZK snarks that recursively refer to each other. Like the innermost snark is called the program snark, and then there's the inner snark, which refers to the program snark, and the outer snark, which refers to the inner snark. And basically, via these layers, you're able to achieve data and functional privacy. But it also means there's 3 zero knowledge proofs being used, not 1. So that means there's going to be a setup ceremony, because that's a feature of ZK snarks, at least non-transparent ZK snarks, which are the efficient type that are practical today. And Sam and I are writing a little piece about setup ceremonies, about how they've evolved from the very beginning of Zero Cash / Zcash, the first setup ceremony, to the latest and greatest, which and talking about some of the techniques we're hoping to integrate. So yeah, stay tuned.
Awesome. Cool. And then, yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention is, so going back to our Leo programming language, we actually had some academic researchers use Leo to explore solutions to what they call this other file drawer problem in behavioral economics. We did post about that in the Zero Knowledge channel, and I put a link here for when we share the slides, but definitely check that out. I think it's an interesting application of Zero Knowledge that was actually built using Leo. So that should give you a general feel of some of the things that you could actually tangibly do today with our programming language. So yeah, just wanted to mention that as well. Great. Yeah, so the next topic we want to go to, which I mentioned in our agenda, is our Leo programming contest. So this is something that we decided we would put out there in our community, and there will be more details to come. Probably within the next week or so, we'll put some more details about this. But essentially, this is more of a contest using our Leo programming language, which I was just talking about. And essentially, there will be a prize awarded to the winner. We haven't really decided what that will be exactly yet, but will definitely be something. And then we'll have a leaderboard, which will be broadcast to our community. So if you're somebody that ends up winning this contest, you'll kind of get a shout out from us to the entire community, which should be pretty cool. And main objective is just to write an efficient sorting algorithm for lists of unassigned 32-bit integers. And really, we're just kind of looking for somebody, or for anybody participating, to develop this generic sorting algorithm in Leo using the least number of constraints possible. So again, we'll send more specific details about that, but just thought we'd give you a little preview of an interesting thing that you could participate in coming up very, very soon. So really excited to announce that, and yeah, looking forward to sharing that with you. Okay, cool. And then for the testnet updates, I'll just turn this over to Damon, and I'll let him kind of take it from here.
Sure. So I'm going to put a link in the chat here for Snark OS. I really encourage everybody to try out, if they can, running a node. We are right now in the middle of stabilization of testnet. So the process for setting up a network is, quite long, right? So you have to first create an environment where people can run a node, download blocks, generate blocks, and mine blocks, right? So this is right, we're right at the very beginning of this, where we're sort of bootstrapping our overall testnet. We have had a testnet for quite some time running on the initial protocol of mine blocks, because we proved out a miner. But now what we're doing is we're making sure that all of the consensus and the distribution and synchronization of all the blocks actually works at scale, and so that it performs well and it's also secure. So if you've been following the Discord, there's been, over the past, I'd say 8 weeks or so, since our release of Snark OS, our latest one, there's been stability issues around the synchronization and connecting to bootstrap nodes. And there are different kinds of nodes too that are run, right? We have a core miner node right now that's running, is producing all the blocks. And there are bootstrap nodes, which are compiled into the network itself. So when you run Snark OS and you bring it up, there's a list of 6 IPs that everything sort of calls home to as we bootstrap our decentralized network. There will be more bootstrappers in the future. In fact, all this will be community run. So what we're doing now is encouraging people to run Snark OS. You don't have to run it as a bootstrapper node. That actually takes up a lot of networking resources, because you act as a centralized place to like blast out all the different peers and then give them updates to blocks as you receive them. And that's pretty intense. So if you have the networking resources, or if you have a place where you're a co-location facility or a hosting facility like DigitalOcean, then you can run a full-blown node, and you can actually provide blocks to everybody else and participate in a vast swarm of nodes actually connecting to each other. The stability issues that we've been seeing so far are mostly around what we call synchronous code access, right? So these nodes are multi-threaded, and there's a lot of contention for the same resource, and sometimes you get into a deadlock situation. So one of the things that developers tend to do is create synchronous access to these resources, and that causes even more deadlocks, the more synchronous code you put in there. So now we've removed all of the synchronous code because we've planned out our threading model, and now it's time to sort of really test it out in the wild. And we've managed to reach, over the past 2 weeks, I think, a very stable point. We are running on a branch called staging. So if you do check out that link that I put into the chat for Snark OS, if you check out that repository, do a GitHub pull on it, and then check out staging, and then you can run staging from there. And there are simple instructions in the README file for running a Snark OS node. You should see your node come up. It will call home to our Bootstrap servers, and then after several seconds, it will start pulling down all the blocks, and you should see those block counts actually increase over time. I think there's roughly 280,000, or between 240 280,000 blocks right now, depending on when you look. Right now, all of our Bootstrap nodes have been synchronized, and they've been running now for about 4 days without interruption. So we're pretty happy about that. So yeah, that's it. And we'll be in Discord to answer questions all the time for TestNet. Now that we have a stable set of, yes, okay, so we got a question. So those are the links. So getting started installation. Let's see. Yes, those are actually right. Those are that's the right link. I recommend, you don't necessarily, I think the Docker stuff is probably more complicated. So I recommend up to the build from source code, right? And then just a cargo space build -- release. That's really the best way to do it. That should give you everything you need. Oh, one other thing too is you should run on the nightly version of Rust. And that's probably something that we should add to this documentation. So if you use Rust up, yep, there you go. So good. Yeah, see, there's different, Rust has different versions. Like they've got a stable version and they've got a nightly version, and we're using some of the cutting edge stuff that's being pushed into Rust, mostly because of things like RocksDB and some of our dependencies. So make sure you do a Rust up default nightly. So, and other questions? Yeah, happy to answer questions on Snark OS. So, all right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Next things to expect is we're going to take this stable branch that we have now. We're going to cut a new version of Snark OS. I think we're on 1.3 or so of Snark OS, and 1.3.1. And we're going to have a new version of it that goes into our main branch, master branch, and be an actual release, so that everybody who downloads Snark OS from the default will be able to get the latest and greatest stable version. But right now we're still in development mode. So I expect that to happen probably by Monday or Tuesday of next week. We've got some resources that are out of the office right now, but they're going to be coming back in to help us cut a new branch. That's it for me. If there's other questions, I'm happy to take them.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that update, David. Yeah, so I think, so after this, we basically just have like a general Q&A where people can kind of ask whatever they want, and we can sort of roll with the flow here. But if there's any specific questions about Snark OS or anything that Damon just mentioned, maybe we can, yeah, feel free to ask that. Now you can type a question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and kind of just ask away. If we don't get any questions, then we can just, yeah, move to our general Q&A. But yeah, I'll open that up for a second here just to see if anybody has anything specific on that topic. Okay. Looks like, all right. So looks like, I guess, yeah, people don't have any burning questions immediately. So
Like
yeah,
we have one.
Sorry, go ahead.
How is
okay.
Aleo comparable to the MENA protocol?
Oh man, Sam, resident Mina expert. You want to try? And I can go after you. Yeah, don't mind
Sure.
that.
Sure. A couple things. One, yeah. So I'd say that there's a lot of things that are different. I think that, like, functionally, the two biggest differences is the consensus algorithm. Mina uses proof of stake, and specifically they use Ouroboros, which is, I'd say, good as far as proof of stake protocols go. But I think the more you go down the rabbit hole on kind of the game theory behind proof of stake versus proof of work, and when you factor in you know, things like cost of sustaining attacks on the network, that proof of work in some form is probably always going to be the most secure. And so the fact that Aleo is using a proof of work algorithm, but it's using a proof of work algorithm that, in its final form, will be essentially entirely useful proof of work. So there isn't, like, the whole waste, the so-called waste effect of proof of work is completely negated, and you're piggybacking on the I think inarguably superior security of proof of work. So that's the one thing that is different, and the other I'd say the other big thing that's different is aside from the obvious one, which is that Mina doesn't have a blockchain, or yeah, it doesn't. There's pros and cons to that, obviously. As Anton, I don't know if you're still here. If you're running a node, I'm sure you've learned there's actually a lot of cons that go along with not requiring kind of a full history of transactions. But yeah, that's kind of an obvious one. But the other one that might not be so obvious about how Aleo and Mina are different is kind of the marketplace for how kind of the economics of how the snark work is going to be done. So Anton, you'll know this as well, that in Mina, the way that snark work is done is they have what they call the snarket place, which is basically it's essentially just like a free-for-all. It's like before the mempool, you have the snark pool, and kind of in order to get things into the mempool, in order to get any transaction to go into a block, it needs to be snarked and to be kind of compressed into that one little recursive snark that is the closest thing they have to a blockchain. And so that's kind of the marketplace for how snark work is done on the network. And so the way that works is it essentially just takes like the free market approach, where you can have redundancy, where you can have 10 different people that are all doing exactly the same work. They've all created the same snark for a given transaction, but because this guy has the lowest, he's charging block producers the least for producing this snark. His is the only one that gets included into the block, and he's the only one that gets the fee. So there's actually a lot of redundancy to this, and it's something that they're aware of, and they're already trying to come up with like coordination schemes where basically like in the same way that you have mining pools, you have like snark pools. Like there's things you can do, but I think there's always going to be a lot of redundancy and inefficiency on the system versus Zexy, which Aleo uses, kind of allows for it almost entirely uniquely, by the way. It allows for all computation to only be done once by one person and then sent into the network. So it's like the absolute bare minimum is zero redundancy, actually, because rather than potentially a huge number of people doing the same amount of work and the result only being one of those, only one person has to do the work, and then it just sends it to it, and it has exactly the same security as the rest of the system. So it's the proof of work versus proof of stake. and the kind of the economics of snark work, I think, are the two like big picture differentiators anyway between Aleo and Mina.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. No, I think that's great, and I think actually the proof of work versus proof of stake thing is a great and important distinction to bring up, because there's been a lot of folks on Discord asking, they're like, hey, you know, when is the incentivized testnet? And Mina obviously kind of, I think was one of the pioneers of that model, which is really cool. And I think we definitely want to incentivize people to contribute to our network, but it is, it's one of those things where this is a proof of work blockchain. So the incentivized testnet is like the main net when it launches, like you should, run a miner, et cetera. We may do stuff to encourage people to mine earlier and figure out ways to incentivize them to mine on testnet and to run nodes. We're still working on that. But notably, as Sam pointed out, this is not a proof of stake blockchain, it's proof of work. It's a really cool version of proof of work, which if anyone's interested, I can share some resources about. But yeah, the other big difference that I want to highlight is that Mina's doesn't actually guarantee privacy. I think the snarks in Mina are used to make the blockchain succinct. It's a really cool construction, but actually privacy is not one of the design goals of Mina. Whereas with Aleo, it is. And I think, in different areas, privacy may be more or less important or applied in different ways, but nonetheless, I think we feel very strongly that it's a key part of our system. So that's another thing I would point out. Cool. Yeah, Indigo, I see you want that. So I'll share, as soon as I'm done chatting, I'll pull the paper and the link to the specific area in the docs that talks about Aleo's version of what I'm going to send in the paper. And I'll put it in Discord, and I'll put it in this, in our chat here. Cool. And there was another question about use cases for Snark OS. Yeah, so I guess I can take it since I'm already on a roll here. So so use cases for Snark OS. So Snark OS is really like basically our implementation of Zexy. And so I kind of think of it as like, what are the implementations of Zexy? I think there's a number of applications, and I think of it I kind of separate them out in two categories. I view it's like the web of the web of information and the web of value. So I kind of like web of information is sort of like what I would call traditional use cases, non-financial, non-blockchain. And then the web of value is all stuff that's kind of blockchain related today. I mean, my personal thesis around the web of value and the web of information is that the two are going to become one at some point in the future. But for now, they are distinct. And so I'll keep the applications for Snark OS distinct as well. So for the web of value side, so this is speaking about cryptocurrency and blockchain applications. I think one of the biggest areas is in DeFi, decentralized finance. So, I mean, I think most of you on this call, if anyone's not, I guess decentralized finance is, so it's basically financial applications, like exchanges, lending, et cetera, that's just basically put on a blockchain on Ethereum. So you have applications like MakerDAO, Compound, Uniswap for exchanges. And one of the problems with this model of Ethereum is that because all the transactions happen on chain and are posted publicly, they exist publicly also prior to being published on chain in the mempool, where miners are basically taking them and including those transactions in the blocks. What that means is miners can see the intentions of users of the system before those transactions are published, and miners can in fact actually go and front run people who are doing, say, an exchange on Uniswap. So, for those of you who don't know how Uniswap works, it's it's a bonding curve that basically just defines, a mathematical relationship between two assets. And then based on the supply on either side of that curve, the prices, you get a price for it automatically. But yeah, so a miner can take advantage of this. Say if you're putting in a buy order, they can buy just ahead of you, and then get the price that you were going to get, and then your price is effectively higher than you thought it was going to be. So that's just one area where fully transparent blockchains like Ethereum leave open the possibility for exploitation. So I think DeFi is a big area and a big use case that we're looking at, particularly the use case of exchanges like dark pools, OTCs, because this problem gets bigger and more acute the larger the trade size, right? If you're only trading a small amount, miners aren't likely to care or notice. But if you're trading a very large block of an asset, it becomes very profitable to change how, to basically reorder the transactions. Yeah, a couple other use cases I'll mention briefly. Oracles. I think another cool use case for SnarkOS is having private oracles. So I don't know how many people here are familiar with Augur, but it kind of pioneered this idea of a oracle on a blockchain and prediction markets and stuff. And one of the problems that they point out in one of their original white papers is this problem, of parasitic oracles, where the oracle value that's published, or whatever the oracle is connected to, as soon as it publishes anything to the blockchain, it's impossible to monetize that in any way because it's public at that point. So it becomes a public good. But in our model, again, because of the private off-chain nature of SnarkOS, you can potentially have an oracle that is connected to some application and basically prove that the oracle, reported a value within some range or according to some parameter without revealing what the actual oracle reported, which is really cool and interesting. It opens up a whole new category of potential applications that are powered by oracles, which is many things. So I think that's another area that's really cool and exciting. Gaming. This one starts to kind of bleed over into the web of information, as I've kind of framed it. But yeah, gaming. I would encourage all of you to basically check out. There's a game called Dark Forest. It's on Ethereum. It's a ZK game, and it's a massively online multiplayer game where there is no central server, and players submit moves through zero knowledge proofs. And what that gives you is, it basically replicates the experience of an online multiplayer strategy game without a central server. And it's a totally new paradigm. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it. The Dark Forest team, in fact, has come up with a bunch of cool innovations too around NFTs that are connected to it, etc. But yeah, so that's a whole new category that we believe is enabled by zero knowledge proofs that SnarkOS kind of natively supports. And then the very last one that I'll mention, since I've kind of been going on for a minute, is authorization. So, basically a part of the identity or security stack for the traditional web. So, so you can imagine something like a passwordless login or a different kind of better CAPTCHA type little applet, and that being powered by Aleo, and that could be compatible with the web of today. It doesn't need to, we don't need some future Web3. This plugs right into stuff as it exists today. So, sorry for the long-winded answer, but hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, and so like those are all use cases for I think like zero knowledge and snarks in general. And I think which are all like all that's correct, but also I think it's worth mentioning kind of within the kind of snarks as a service, if I guess that now kind of is becoming a category, like what sets SnarkOS, why is SnarkOS different from kind of others that are like developing in this? And I think a lot of it is going to come down to something that I touched on earlier, which is that you can just do computation kind of once, and then it's settled on chain. So I think that's going to lead, and also the fact that eventually the same hardware that you're going to be using to mine is actually going to be the hardware that is being used for these snarks. So I think there's going to be a lot of cost savings in regards to that, and so I think that's going to be a differentiator. The other thing, lost my train of thought here. Yeah, so it's the efficiency of the Zexi model. I think is going to set it apart, and also something that I think Anton mentioned earlier, and again is one of the things that attracted me to Aleo, and I think is something that kind of doesn't get enough credit, is just the attention that Aleo, as just like from a philosophical level, the attention that Aleo is putting on making the developer experience as accessible as possible. And yeah, I mean, already you've seen our tool stack, even it's some that aren't 100% out the door yet. Everything is just very, very slick, and just try to lower the bar as much as possible and try to get as big big a chunk of the dev share as possible, which I think Ethereum proved is very important for these protocols to do. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for those comments. Really great stuff. Let's see. Somebody said why Aleo. I guess we kind of covered that. But then Indigo also asked, could Aleo be used to outsource trusted computation for smart contracts, things traditionally done off chain?
That's exactly right, Indigo.
Is the short answer, yes.
Cool. Awesome. And then, yeah, okay, those seem to be the questions so far in the chat.
And it's that kind of, like, you can almost, yeah, it's the way that, like, that's done is it's kind of halfway in between being it's all done off chain versus it's all done on chain, and it's that kind of feature that lets you do that kind of, only need to do the computation once and then just settle it on chain.
Yeah, and the key piece is, I think in all these conversations around scalability and off-chain versus on-chain, the key question always asked is the data availability, right? So where does the data that you're operating on live? Excuse me. And this is, as Sam pointed out, a challenge of a blockchain like Mina, where you have a very succinct representation of the current state that you know was valid, but you don't really know what the state is, or what maybe there's relevant information that you need to operate on, or that you need to run a program that you don't have access to. And so that reduces the number of things you can apply. So in Aleo's model, and I want to highlight this because I think this is a very important but subtle point. So all the transactions, so Aleo is not a succinct blockchain. It's a full blockchain, and all the transactions end up on chain, the entire state history, just like Bitcoin and every other kind of earlier blockchain. The advantage of this is that the data is always available. Now, the transactions that are on chain are all zero knowledge proofs. So by default, the data is, I guess, unavailable to people who don't have access to the view key, who are not the intended recipients of the transaction. But people who submit the transactions can also optionally include the view key in the public memo field for the transaction and effectively make it equivalent to like Ethereum, where anybody can view all of the contents of the transaction on chain. Now, why would you do that? Well, because okay, well, that gives up all your advantage of privacy, but it doesn't have to be a binary thing. Like, you can selectively reveal certain aspects of what computation you're running or of what's being proven, without revealing the entire thing. And that flexibility, the privacy by default, but the flexibility to publish, certain aspects of the data, I think is really powerful, and enables you to kind of have the best of both worlds. So there's a question, Indigo. So, okay, so what's the congestion on Aleo or another chain? So, okay, so in the model I'm describing, it's just Aleo, and then there is really no other chain here necessarily. Although you could, I think in the model you're thinking of as like an L1, L2 framework. And so I guess the congestion that I think of is on Aleo potentially, right? So there is, based on what I just said, there is a fundamental limit to the number of transactions that Aleo can process. It's basically based on, that limit is based on the time it takes to verify a proof and the block time. Now, that said, that using the construction that, like, Mina, for example, has embraced, this Halo recursive snark construction, you can actually pack in multiple transactions into a single proof. And so therefore, in that way, you can kind of scale, you can kind of scale out Aleo to be a lot at the layer one, quite a large degree. And then as far as the off-chain Aleo part, like, not, I guess you could think of it as another chain, or just you're creating the proof on your computer, off-chain or whatever. Like, it's entirely off-chain from Aleo's perspective. That scalability is limited only by, well, it's limited by the time that you have to run the computation. And if you're talking about another chain that you're connected to, the characteristics of that chain. And this is cool. This is another cool point, is that runtime in Aleo in this model is unlimited. So you can run any program. Like, for example, like on Ethereum, Ethereum block times are 15 seconds and the VM is on chain. So any program that gets run on Ethereum has to share the same 15-second slice of runtime. And so that means you can't run like, a silly example is like protein folding, right? You can't go prove that you perform some protein folding operation correctly, because that would take too long for that block time. So you do, even though Ethereum is very powerful and that model is Turing complete and it gives you all that power in terms of programmability, you do actually have this drawback where you don't have the unlimited runtime. And so this, in some ways, Aleo actually provides more flexibility. Yeah. Anyway, I know we're about out of time. So Anthony, I'll let you close it up, and thanks a lot, everyone, for coming. You're muted.
Sorry, yeah, I was muted there. Yeah, sorry, I was just saying I was taking some detailed notes on that, which we will share afterwards. So, yeah, thank you everybody for joining. We're at a minute over here, but really great discussion for a first call. Just so people are aware, we're going to be doing this pretty regularly. And I'm actually going to be, so I actually neglected to share this on the slide. So maybe I'll just do it really quickly. But basically, we're going to send a feedback form to anybody that joined this call, just so we can get a better sense of what we can improve. So I'll send this link out on Discord as well. But if you just want to take a mental note of it, it's basically just tinyurl.com/Aleo community call. Essentially, we have a few like very, straightforward questions just to hear from you. So please, if you have time, fill that out. We take all of your comments really seriously. And yeah, the regular cadence for this, I think we're still kind of working that out, but we will again have another community call, and then the recording of this, the slides, and the notes that we took will all be published publicly as well. So keep a lookout for that. And yeah, like I said, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're really eager to continue speaking with all of you, and yeah, getting you more involved with the community. So once again, thanks for coming, and yeah, looking forward to seeing all of you at the next call.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.